Springtime on the West Coast in the 1990s wasn't just a shift in the weather. It was a full-blown, sun-drenched fashion awakening. As the gray, damp skies of a California winter gave way to that familiar golden sunlight and the scent of blooming jasmine filled the air, a different kind of seasonal change took hold. Wardrobes across the coast, from the foggy streets of San Francisco to the beachfront boulevards of Santa Monica, burst open with the anticipation of transformation. This wasn't just about swapping out jackets for tanks. It was about stepping into a new version of yourself, a brighter, louder, more expressive self. What spilled out of those closets was nothing short of a chaotic, joyful blend of style experimentation. Part playful rebellion, part mall-fueled fantasy, and all wrapped in a glitter-dusted layer of nostalgia that still lingers in the collective memory. At the very core of this springtime fashion renaissance were young women navigating both the awkward excitement of coming of age and the equally complex journey of coming into personal style. These girls, tweens, teens, and young 20-somethings, were raised on a steady diet of Delia's catalogs, 17 magazine spreads, and back-to-back episodes of MTV's Total Request Live. They were chasing looks inspired by Alicia Silverstone's Cher Horowitz, channeling Brandy and Moshe, copying TLC's mix of tomboy and glam, and piecing together outfits from whatever they could find between Wet Seal and Hot Topic. There was an unspoken, low-level pressure to always look like you might accidentally bump into a camera crew filming a scene from Clueless or a music video set just around the corner. Whether you were heading to algebra class or killing time at the mall, the goal was the same. Be cute, be cool, be you, but slightly better. Fashion in the West during this decade straddled a cultural tension that made it endlessly interesting. It sat at the collision point of grunge and girl pop, of thrift store rebellion and department store polish. One day you might be stomping around in combat boots and a baby tee, flannel tied around your waist, trying to outbrood a Nirvana album cover. The next, you could be all pastel everything, with lip gloss so shiny it could blind someone, trying to look like the fifth member of the Spice Girls. Spring was when those two worlds collided in the best way, giving girls a green light to experiment with all of it, sometimes all at once. No trend captured the chaotic joy of this era quite like the butterfly clip. These weren't subtle hair accessories. They were declarations, not just one or two dainty pieces clipped in at the sides. No, we're talking dozens of tiny, colorful plastic butterflies scattered strategically or haphazardly across intricate updos, messy buns, or the two-twist hairstyle that became a signature move of the era. They clung to strands of hair like sparkly winged soldiers shimmering under the spring sun, catching the light during PE class and absolutely refusing to stay in place during lunch break gossip sessions. They were magical, disposable, and essential. And if you were really going for the look, you paired them with glossy hair chopsticks jammed into a bun that somehow stayed up, even if physics said it shouldn't. The overall effect was part anime, part rave, part clueless teen genius. It didn't matter where you were headed, whether it was first period geometry, a sleepover with friends, or even just a solo mission to the corner store for a new pack of Bubblicious gum. You looked ready for a TRL dance break, or maybe a walk-on part in a Destiny's Child video. Bell-bottoms, or the slightly more practical and less theatrical boot cuts, didn't just return. They re-emerged with attitude, swagger, and a sense of mission. These weren't your mom's bell-bottoms from the 70s gathering dust in a storage box. No, this was a bold, intentional style choice that made its way back into spring break wardrobes across the West Coast like a fashion boomerang. Pulled from the depths of metaphorical and sometimes literal bottom drawers, they signaled more than a throwback. They marked a resurgence of carefree confidence that defined a generation rediscovering its own sense of cool. Women wore them not as costume, but as armor, pairing those dramatically flared legs with cropped baby tees, tie-back, halters, or the classic 90s layering move, a spaghetti-strap tank over a white t-shirt. This wasn't just an outfit, it was a declaration, a mood, a moment. And if the jeans rode low, and they usually did, you had to be ready. If you were lucky, they clung to your hips just right. Your platform sandals gave you a couple extra inches of height without sacrificing attitude, and your mood ring changed colors with the sea breeze. A pager, clipped proudly to your waistband or peeking out of your purse, was the final touch. It wasn't just for receiving messages. It was a badge of relevance, a flashing symbol that you were in the loop, possibly heading to the mall or to a friend's house party with your ringtone set to something obnoxious just for fun. Walking through the promenade in that kind of fit wasn't just style, it was performance art. You knew you looked good, or at least on trend, and that was the point. Of course, not everyone was thrilled to see those styles drop again. Even back then, opinions on low-rise jeans and bell-bottoms were mixed at best, polarizing at worst. For every woman excited to resurrect her flares and rock them with pride, there was another recoiling in horror at the memory of early 2000s fashion trauma. The low-rise jean, in particular, inspired strong reactions, and still does. The way it sat precariously on the hips, barely covering what it needed to, left many with emotional and sometimes physical scars. The visible thong strap, whether accidental or on purpose, became a fashion flashpoint, a cultural moment both celebrated and cringed at. Even today, you'll find Reddit threads and group chats alive with passionate declarations like, "You could not pay me enough to wear low-rise jeans again." And you know what? That voice probably speaks for more than a few spines, stomachs, and self-esteems that lived through the original trend cycle. Spring fashion on the West Coast wasn't just about denim, though. It thrived on contradictions. The season carried with it an undercurrent of rebellion, but not the loud, theatrical kind. This was soft rebellion. It was quiet resistance wrapped in texture and oversized silhouettes. Grunge, born from the misty garages and basement venues of the Pacific Northwest, had long since spilled down the coast, leaving its influence in the seams and shoelaces of everyday outfits. Flannel shirts, often a few sizes too big, were tied casually around waists during the day and thrown over shoulders at night. Bantees were worn into the ground, faded and full of holes, but never quite retired. And then, of course, there were the Doc Martens, chunky, unapologetic, and somehow perfect with everything. They stomped through suburban sidewalks, skate parks, and vintage shops without missing a beat. It was a look that claimed not to care, and maybe on the surface it didn't. But the truth was, there was an art to it. That just rolled out of bed outfit, it took effort. The oversized flannel, the carefully distressed jeans, the tousled hair that looked both lived in and styled. It all came together in a way that felt authentic, even when it was curated. Combat boots paired with floral sundresses captured the perfect tension between softness and grit, like someone who could write you a love letter and break your heart in the same breath. That balance, tough and tender, curated and effortless, was the aesthetic language of West Coast spring fashion in the 90s. The accessory game during springtime on the West Coast in the 1990s was truly something to behold. Part fashion statement, part cultural time capsule, and part chaotic fun. It was a decade when more was more, when no outfit felt finished without at least 3 too many accessories, and when your personal style could be defined by what you carried in your glittery mini backpack or clipped into your hair that morning. From the unmistakable clack of plastic butterfly clips to the delicate jingle of charm bracelets picked up at Claire's, women of the era didn't just get dressed, they decorated. Tiny sunglasses, those famously impractical slivers of tinted plastic perched on the nose, offered zero UV protection, but all the attitude. They were worn with confidence, often paired with lip gloss, so shiny it could blind someone if it caught the sun just right. Chokers, especially the stretchy tattoo-style ones, were practically handed out with every issue of 17 or Teen People. And if you didn't get yours from a magazine, chances are you grabbed one at the mall from Hot Topic, Wet Seal, or Contempo Casuals. You didn't need a reason to wear one, they just belonged on your neck. No outfit felt complete without some kind of neckwear, no matter how casual the rest of your look might be. Every bathroom counter and bedroom dresser was a shrine to the holy trinity of teen beauty essentials. A caboodle bursting at the hinges, a rainbow of lip smackers, Dr. Pepper anyone, and eyeshadow in frosted lavender or icy blue that somehow matched everything and nothing at once. The butterfly-shaped barrettes, seemingly made from the most fragile plastic known to mankind, broke constantly, but kept finding their way back onto shopping lists, dresser drawers, and hairlines. They weren't just a trend, they were a commitment. Girls didn't wear 1 or 2, they wore 10, scattered across buns, ponytails, and zigzag parts, turning heads and catching light with every move. Rules were unspoken but universally understood. Matching your eyeshadow to your top wasn't a suggestion. It was an obligation. You didn't go bold on the lids and neutral on the shirt. No, you committed. You color coordinated like your adolescent identity depended on it. Eyeliner wasn't just worn, it was applied aggressively, specifically in the waterline, even if it smudged before you made it past 3rd period. Looking like a raccoon by 2 p.m.? Totally worth it. What made this era's spring fashion so enduring, and frankly so charming, was its absolute lack of apology. It wasn't curated for an algorithm or strategically built to rack up likes. There were no micro-trends with 48-hour expiration dates. There was no pressure to have a capsule wardrobe or to be minimal and tasteful. It was maximalist. It was chaotic. It was weird. And it was fun. You could fall head over platform heels in love with a certain color, wear it nonstop, abandon it, and then 6 months later, rediscover it like an old friend. Trends stuck around long enough to evolve with you. They didn't vanish with the swipe of a screen. And maybe that's why, decades later, so many women are circling back. They're opening browser tabs and shopping carts and saving posts filled with updated versions of the pieces they once wore without a second thought. They're seeing flared jeans and beaded necklaces and thinking, wait, is this me again? The answer isn't simple, but it is honest. Yes, you can wear them again. Not because you're trying to look younger, but because you remember how it felt to dress like that. It wasn't about being trendy. It was about feeling fearless, expressive, and totally yourself, even if your look changed weekly. So if you happen to see someone walking down the Venice Beach boardwalk or through a Pasadena flea market wearing a full butterfly clip crown, flared jeans, and an overlined lip gloss smile, give her a nod. She might be reliving a piece of her adolescence, finding joy in what once was. Or maybe she never stopped dressing that way and just waited for the world to catch up again. Either way, it's not about nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It's about reclaiming a time when fashion was lighthearted, expressive, and alive with possibility. Spring on the West Coast in the 1990s wasn't about chasing someone else's idea of style. It was about owning yours, no matter how shiny, sparkly, or strange it might have looked to someone else. And honestly, that's a vibe worth reviving.
Joy will bring. Tune into the beat, feel the magic, it's true. Channel 199X, we're here just for you, for you.